Hey medicos, welcome back. Today I am welcoming you to a captivating journey into the hidden world of the human brain. I am thrilled to be your teacher or your guide to this adventurous journey. This is very important topic because it might be asked in your examination, like in your vivas if you are in the first year, and it is also important if you are preparing for NEET PG or INICT. There are many questions that asked from this topic, so be attentive while this lecture. At the end of every section, I will add one labeled image, and at the end, I will provide you a PDF from where you can revise it again and again. So be attentive while this lecture. So here we have our first cut section. So this is the base of the brain. And here in this first cadaveric image, we are going to look for the arteries and some basic structures. So the first one is, yes, vertebral artery. So vertebral arteries are major blood vessels that originates from the subclavian artery, right? They ascend to the transverse foramina, we know that, and this transverse foramina, they entered into the base of skull through foramen magnum. So inside the skull, these two vertebral arteries we can see here join together to form basilar artery. So we got basilar artery. So this is the basilar artery, and it ascends along the anterior surface of the midbrain between the pons and medulla oblongata. So here, this is the pons and this is the medulla oblongata. Okay, the basilar artery gives rise to important branches that supplies various structures of the brain. So here we can clearly see that here we have anterior inferior cerebral artery. This anterior cerebral inferior artery travels laterally and wraps around the pons to supply blood to the anterior and inferior aspect of the cerebellum as well as part of lateral pons. So this is the anterior inferior cerebral artery. Now here we can see that a small artery, and that is the posterior inferior cerebral artery, which is the most tortuous artery in our body, and this is involved in the which syndrome? Yes, Wallenberg syndrome. So we will discuss it later. So this is the pica, that is posterior inferior cerebral artery. Now we are going through up. So this is the basilar artery, and this basilar artery going to divide into two parts. Okay, so here we get posterior cerebral arteries. Okay, so this is the posterior cerebral artery, and this posterior cerebral artery supplies the posterior part of the brain, including the occipital lobe, middle temporal lobe, and portion of the thalamus. Okay, so this is the posterior cerebral artery, and just below it we can see that here we have the superior cerebral artery, and this superior cerebral artery travels laterally to supply blood to the superior surface of the cerebellum and parts of the midbrain. Okay, so this is the superior cerebral artery. Can you see in between posterior cerebral artery and superior cerebral artery, here we have the third cranial nerve, and just lateral to it we have the fourth cranial nerve. So what is the third cranial nerve? Okay, comment in the section. This is very simple, but yeah, comment in the section. Now this is the fourth cranial nerve. We are going above, and here we can see that here we have the internal carotid artery. Now this internal carotid artery gives one branch, that is posterior communicating artery, which is joined to posterior cerebral artery and forms a connection between internal carotid artery and posterior communicating artery. Okay, now the internal carotid artery going to divide into the middle cerebral artery and anterior cerebral artery. So look over here, here we have the internal carotid artery, and this internal carotid artery gives rise to a branch, that is middle cerebral artery, and this is the anterior cerebral artery. Now we learn about the circle of Willis. Did you watch this lecture? If you not, then here we have the link, you can watch it. So this is very important lecture for understanding this concept, and that in that lecture I explained the circle of Willis in very simplified way. You can watch it. So this is the anterior cerebral arteries. So these two anterior cerebral arteries here and here arise from the internal carotid arteries, which are going to run along the medial aspect of the cerebral hemisphere, and these are connected by the anterior communicating artery. Look over here. Here we have the circle of Willis, and can you see this is the anterior communicating artery which is going to connect both anterior cerebral arteries. So these anterior cerebral arteries supplied blood to the frontal lobe and the medial as surface of the parietal lobes. But yeah, I agree, in this cadaveric image we can't see the anterior communicating artery. Now look over here, just below the middle cerebral artery, can you see some feature like structure? So this feature like structure, it is the lateral sulcus, which is further going to divide into anterior, posterior and ascending division. So this is called as, yes, limine insula. We had one question on this limine insula, that is, it is lies medial to anterior perforating substance. So here we have anterior perforating substance and limine insula lies lateral to it. Okay. Now just look into this middle part, and here we can see that this is the optic chiasma and this is the optic tract. So this is the base of the cerebral hemispheres. Okay. If you want to take a screenshot of this labeled image, you can take. Now let's talk about some other structures. So here can you see this is the bulbous structure and it's involved in the sense of smell. Yes, this is the olfactory bulb. So olfactory bulb is a small structure located at the front of the brain just above the nasal cavity, and this is helps in the receiving sensory input from the olfactory nerve which carries signal from the nasal passage. Okay, now look over here, can you see this is the olfactory tract. Okay, and this olfactory tract is a bundle of nerve fibers that extend posteriorly from the olfactory bulb. So it carries sensory information from the olfactory bulb to the higher regions of the brain, such as olfactory cortex. Right, now look over here. Here can you see as a point of intersection of the optic nerves? Yes, it is called as the optic chiasma. It is a cross-shaped structure located at the base of brain just in front of the pituitary gland, and the optic chiasma is where the optic nerve from each eye is partially crossed over, allowing for merging of visual information. So this is the optic chiasma. Okay, now can you see just below it, here we have the optic tract, and this is the continuation of the optic nerve fibers beyond the optic chiasma. So this is the tract and it can be seen extending posteriorly from the optic chiasma, right? Now look over here, this is the infundibulum. So infundibulum, it is a thin tubular structure connecting the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland, and infundibulum, also known as the stalk of pituitary gland, is slender structure that extend from the hypothalamus. So the infundibulum serves as conduit of hormonal signals between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. So this is the infundibulum. Now can you see here, these are the paired structures resembling small nipples. Yeah, so these are the mammillary bodies. So these two structures are small, rounded and located on the surface of the brain posterior to the infundibulum. The mammillary bodies involved in the memory process, particularly in relation to the limbic system and hippocampus. Now look over here. Here we have the complex network of the white matter tracts, and it is called as posterior perforating substance. So posterior perforating substance, which is also known as the posterior perforated substance or the cerebral peduncle, and it contained important motor and sensory fibers that connect different regions of the brain. Now look over here. Here there is slight elevation or protuberance can be seen, and it is called as tuber cinereum. It is a small rounded structure located between the mammillary body. Can you see? Here we have the mammillary body and here we have the infundibulum. So it is located in between them. So this is the tuber cinereum, and it is a part of hypothalamus and is involved in regulating various physiological processes, including hormone secretion, right? So this is the tuber cinerum. Understanding these structures in the cadaveric image is important for studying brain anatomy, as well as diagnosing and understanding the conditions that may affect these regions, such as visual, olfactory disorders, pituitary gland abnormalities, or memory-related issues. Now, let's explore the structures in the brainstem that given in this cadaveric image. So, brainstem is the region of the brain that connects the spinal cord to the higher brain structure. It consists of the three main parts, that is the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the midbrain. It appears like a stalk or like a structure extending from the base of the brain. So, can you see here? Here we have the superior colliculus and here we have the inferior colliculus, are prominent structure located in the midbrain, which the uppermost part of midbrain. Okay, so here we have the superior colliculus appears as a pairs of rounded bumps, while here just below it we have the inferior colliculus. The superior colliculus involved in the visual processing and eye movement coordination, while the inferior colliculus involved in the auditory processing. Now here we can see that here we have the trochlear nerve, okay, that is the fourth cranial nerve. Now this is the median sulcus. So the median sulcus, it appears as vertical groove dividing the medulla into left and right halves. Okay, so it present the point of anatomical separation between the two sides of medulla. So it is a midline structure, right? Now look over here. Here we have the median eminence. That is, look over here. This is the median eminence, and it is a small ridge-like structure located in the base of hypothalamus, which is part of the brainstem. So this is the subtle elevation, or we can say the protuberance, and it plays a role in the release of hormones into the bloodstream, and it is an important part of hypothalamic pituitary axis. So this is the median eminence. Now look over here. Here we have the superior peduncles, and just below it here we have the inferior peduncle. Okay, so the superior cerebral peduncle appears as thick bundle of fibers located above the fourth ventricle, and while the inferior cerebral peduncle seen below it. So this is the superior and this is the inferior cerebral peduncle. Now the peduncles are involved in the transmitting information between the cerebellum and the other parts of the brain. Look over here. Here can you see it is a distinct bulge or prominence in the lateral aspect of the pons? Yes, it is the facial calculus, also known as the facial nucleus, and is a nucleus located in the pons region of the brainstem. So it plays a crucial role in controlling the facial muscle and its expressions. Now look over here. Here we have the stria medullaris. Stria medullaris, it can be seen as thin vertically oriented band, right? And it is located in the midline of the thalamus extending into the hypothalamus. So this is the stria medullaris. Now look over here, we have two tubercles, the cuneate and the gracialis. So the cuneate and gracialis tubercles are structures located on the posterior aspect of the medulla oblongata. Okay, and it appears like small elongated bumps or elevations, we can see here. And the nucleus gracialis and nucleus cuneate are associated with the cuneate and gracial nuclei, which are involved in the transmission of sensory information related to touch, vibration, and proprioception from the body to the brain. Now the next structure here, we can see that it is the conversion at lower end of the medulla, and it is a small point. So it is the obex, and it is a landmark located at the lower part of the medulla oblongata, where the fourth ventricle narrows. The obex serve as the landmark for identifying structures within the medulla and plays a role in flow of cerebrospinal fluid. So understanding these structures in cadaveric image of the brainstem is crucial for studying brain anatomy, neurological functions, and diagnosing conditions or injuries that may affect these regions. So these are the structures in the brainstem. If you want to take a screenshot, you can take, and at the end I will provide you a PDF. So now look over here. Here we have the coronal section of the brain, and here we have the corona radiata. So it is appears as radiating fibers that spread out from the internal capsule. So here we have the internal capsule, right? So this is on the left and this is on the right side. So this is the corpus callosum. So corpus callosum, it appears as a thick band located at the midline of the brain that connects the left and right cerebral hemisphere. Okay. Now look over here. Here we have the left ventricle, and it appears as a space located deep within the cerebral hemisphere, and yes, we know that it is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Now here we can see that there is a septum. Yes, it appears as translucent structure separating the lateral ventricles. It is septum pellucidum. Okay, and just below it we can see that an arch shaped structure, and this is the fornix. So this is the septum pellucidum, and just below it is the fornix. Okay, now look over here. Here can you see this is the caudate nucleus. So caudate nucleus, it is a structure and it is looks like a C shaped. Okay, and it is surrounding the lateral ventricles. Now look over here. Here we have the thalamus. So thalamus appears as two oval shaped structure, or we can say masses, on either side of third ventricle. And here we have the substantia nigra. So it is appears as a distinct area with dark coloration associated with the production of dopamine. So this is the substantia nigra. Now look over here. Here we have insula. It is a small triangular area beneath the lateral surface of the brain. Now I forgot to tell you about the thalamus striate vein. So thalamus striate vein, it runs along the lateral wall of the lateral ventricle and connecting the thalamus and the caudate nucleus. It may appear as small vessels or thin line. Now look over here. Here we have the lentiform nucleus. So lentiform nucleus, it is looks like lens shaped, and it is a structure deep within the cerebral hemisphere. So this is about the lentiform nucleus. Now can you see this is the pons? We know that, and just below it we have medulla. Now here can you see the bulge on the lateral aspect of the medulla, and it is an oval shaped structure. Yes, it is olive. So olive is oval shaped, and just look over here. This is the pyramid. So it is the triangular shape. Pyramids are appear in the triangular shape. So it is a triangular shaped structure, and it is ventral surface of the medulla. So this is about the coronal section of the brain. Now this is the sagittal section of the brain, and here can you see this is the corpus callosum. So you can observe that here this is the genu, which is anterior cord portion. This is the body, that is the midline portion, and this is the splenium. It is the posterior rounded portion of the corpus callosum. Now look over here. Here we have the body of fornix. So the body of fornix, it is looks like the curved structure, right? Now this is the column of fornix. So the column of fornix, here we can see that two vertical structures descending from the body of the fornix. Okay, so this is the columns of fornix. Now we have two commissures, anterior commissure and posterior commissure. So look over here, a small structure located in the anterior part of the brain below the corpus callosum. So this is the anterior commissure, and here can you see structure located in the posterior part of the brain and above the cerebral aqueduct. So this is the posterior commissure. So I said cerebral aqueduct. So the aqueduct of Slavius, or which is called as the cerebral aqueduct, look over here. Here you can see that a small passage located in the midbrain, posterior to the third ventricle. So this is the aqueduct of Slavius. Okay. Now look over here. This is the translucent structure at the anterior end of the brain. This is the lamina terminalis. Now this is the third ventricle, appears as vertical slits like space. So this is the third ventricle. Now look over here. a small endocrine gland located in the posterior part of the brain between the cerebral hemisphere, and this is the pineal gland. So it appears as rounded, or we can say oval shaped structure. So this is the pineal gland, and the habenular commissure appears as thin structure located above the pineal gland. So this is the habenular commissure. Okay, these are the important parts in the sagittal section of the brain, and this might be asked in your examinations. So you can take a screenshot if you want. Now I will provide you some important cross-sectional images of the brain. So these are some images. From here you can have questions in your PG examinations, and if you are in the first year, then your examiner might ask you the same questions in your Viva examinations. So these are some important cross-sectional images. Okay, so I will provide you one PDF, and the link for the PDF is given in the description. So take a look on it, and thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next ones, and if you have any topic for suggestion, you can suggest me. Thank you.